The purpose of this video is to demonstrate why primary sources are important. We are also going to demonstrate how to properly cite primary sources. We are going to use alcohol, wine, the Greek word oinos, as our study word, I guess you could say. And we're going to use David Brumbelow's book, Ancient Wine in the Bible, A Case for Abstinence, as a illustration, kind of a kicking boy, I guess you could say. So, John 2:9 states, when the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine and did not know where it came from, the master of the feast called the bridegroom, and you're probably familiar with the story. Jesus changes the water into wine. I have personally heard pastors state that Jesus did not change the water into wine, but he changed the water into grape juice. I've never looked upon this interpretation very favorably. It seemed to reflect a rather poor scholarly view of oinos. The Greek word for wine here is oinos. Oinos, according to BDAG, a very authoritative source, is a beverage made from fermented juice of the grape. The word for must or unfermented grape juice is troots. Liddell and Scott has the Trugos, new wine not yet fermented, wine with the lees in it. Must. So non-alcoholic wine to the Greek person was trux, and alcoholic wine is oinos. The word that is used in John 2:9 is oinos, so it must be alcoholic wine. Brumbelow is going to contest this interpretation. In contesting this interpretation, he's also contesting BDAG, a very authoritative source. So he's going to have to make a very plausible authoritative case based upon primary sources to prove his point. Let's take a look at what he has. He looks at a lot of different words and a lot of different early church fathers, well, not early church fathers, but Greek individuals. Kalumala is a big one, who is a contemporary of Jesus. The one that intrigued me the most was Aristotle. Granted, Aristotle predates Jesus by 350 years, but his citation here I thought was of greater substance. Aristotle states, wine is a liquid which raises a difficulty, for it is both liable to evaporation and it also thickens. For instance, new wine does. The reason is that the word wine is ambiguous and different wines behave in different ways. New wine is more earthy than old, and for this reason is more apt to be thickened by heat and less apt to be congealed by cold. So what Aristotle is essentially saying is that we have two different kinds of wine. One kind of wine evaporates. That would be alcoholic wine. The other kind of wine thickens, and that would be grape juice. The sugars have not yet broken down to alcohol, and so if you boil grape juice, the water evaporates and it congeals into jelly. So Aristotle does seem to make a case for wine, oinos, to refer to a grape juice or alcoholic wine. So Brumbelow has kind of a point here. Now let's look at his source. His source is Aristotle, Meteorology, Book 4 from the Complete Works of Aristotle, Princeton University Press. This is a good source. This would be a source that would be fine to cite. It is authoritative. The problem is how he cites it. He has Book 4, Volume 1. Princeton University. Where's the page number? How can I find this thing? You know, I'm not going to trust Brumbelow. I mean, there's no possible way. This is a major change, major difference in interpretation of a very well-known and commonly used Greek word. To say that it can refer to non-alcoholic wine, we have to have some very authoritative evidence. He doesn't even list a page number. This book is acquirable. I could go to WorldCat and I could find it. It's not too many miles away from me. I could at least get a page number. But more importantly is I want to really see what is the Greek word that's used there. I know the Greek word that's used in John 2:9. It's oinos. Is it a different Greek word that Aristotle uses? How can I find this source? I could go and get the book, and this would actually work because I think it is Greek and English, if I remember correctly. But I want to go, I found it a different way, and I found a PDF file of Aristotle's works on Google Books. On Google Books, we have the complete works of Aristotle available in Greek. It's been digitized by Google. Now, one of the problems you have with Google Books is I don't know what buffoons they have digitizing these books, but I've seen several books where they're digitized backwards. This is the end of the book. So you have to be a little careful and get to the beginning of the book, go to the end, and then the works of Aristotle. And then you can find your meteorology, which is the section that this citation comes from. And you can get to your page number. Now, I've done this work in advance, and so I'm not going to go through and find the page number and blah blah blah. I'm going to take you to. It was very difficult to find. I mean, you know, Brumbelow cost me about 10 hours of my life trying to research this whole thing, which is probably why he didn't. It seems like he was too lazy to acquire the actual book that he cites to get the page number, which would have at least been a lot better. But I was able to find the page number, and I know this is a really bad copy, but I'm sorry, it's the best that I could scan out and get from that PDF file. But we have meteorology, and it's on page 388. Notice in this book you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, that's going to come into play. It's going to be important as we try to cite this book properly. Okay, and one of the key words that I took out of this thing was Arcadia. I was able to pull out Arcadia, and then of course here we do have oinos. So Brumbelow actually does have a pretty strong case here, because oinos is the word that's used, and Aristotle is struggling in 350 BC to determine whether or not there is that there are two different kinds of wine, an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic. So his case seems to be substantiated, but he cites it so poorly that nobody can verify his case. That is why when you're writing papers, you have to cite the works correctly. Primary sources are important. They substantiate your evidence. They make a strong argument. But then if they're cited poorly, you know, people are just going to be like, whatever. I'm not going to invest the 10 hours to find the actual true documentation on that. So how do you cite meteorology by Aristotle correctly? And I want to walk you through that a little bit here. One of the helpful places to get this kind of information is Wikipedia. Meteorology by Aristotle, they have an entire article on it. They even have the wiki source, so you could read the entire article, meteorology, on the Greek version, which we're not going to take the time to do. So there's some really helpful things here. One of the helpful things is Becker numbers. Becker numbers are the standard form of reference to works in the works of Aristotle, are based on the page numbers used in the Prussian Academy of Sciences edition of the complete works of Aristotle, which was the work that we were viewing, which we were able to acquire off of Google Books. They take their name from the editor, August Emanuel Becker. So Becker numbers take the format of up to 4 digits, a letter for the column, A or B, then the line number. So we have the up to 4-digit number. In our case, it was page 388. The letter for the column, so we have column A and column B, and our citation started at the bottom of column A and went into column B. Then the line number, and it started around 25 and it ended around 58. So to properly cite this source, we would then, oh, we're not quite there. We then need to look up how do you look up or cite meteorology by Aristotle. In the Society of Biblical Literature Handbook of Style, they provide a very comprehensive list of abbreviations. They've recently revised this edition. I am using the old edition. Multiple pages of abbreviation. What's nice about the PDF is that you can search it. When we search meteorology by meteorology in the document, we just have the hit by Aristotle that comes up. We get the abbreviation METE, so that is our abbreviation for how to cite this primary source. So we would type in the actual text, blah blah blah, then METE in italics, and then 388 was our page number. I started at column A, line 25, and went through column B, line 7. This would be the proper way to cite meteorology by Aristotle. Different primary sources are cited in different ways. The Bible is a primary source. For God so loved the world. And then you would go John 3:16. According to SBLH standards, they have the abbreviations for the books of the Bible, which you would just follow right here. There's the New Testament. John is just John. The Bible is a primary source. Meteorology by Aristotle is a primary source. This is how Aristotle is properly cited. This concludes this video. We've discussed why primary sources are important, especially if you're going to try to contradict something like Bauer, Danker, and Gingrich's Greek-English lexicon. Why primary sources are important. They provide strong arguments for your case, and also we've demonstrated how to properly cite primary sources according to SBLH standards, and specifically I've given guidance on how to cite meteorology.